Okay, here's the scene. Election day 2008. John McCain told his family in the afternoon that the campaign already understood that they would be losing the election that evening. But election night had to roll out. The results had to be understood. Senator McCain would have to give his concession. Here's how his daughter Meghan saw it from the stage that night at the Biltmore Hotel in Phoenix. This is from her new book, Dirty, Sexy Politics. I don't really remember walking off the stage. Emotion can be like a drug and wipe everything out of your head. But I do remember being backstage and seeing Sarah Palin's mother crying hysterically, wailing and making loud sobbing sounds and hugging little Piper. It was hard to witness. All the other Palins had their game faces on. They knew what their job was, but Sarah's mother couldn't do it. Then, for some weird reason, Sarah stepped back on stage by herself. She was waving to the crowd, saying hi to the cameras, almost as though she were in Alaska, not Arizona. What was she doing? I was shocked. It was as if she wanted to make the night about her and not my dad. She was trying to have the last word and the last wave. What else did she want or need? What was driving her to do this? Possibly it was unconscious, this dramatic bit of upstaging, and she couldn't see how it could look to us or anybody else. She was supposed to leave the stage, but she couldn't go along with the plans even then, even on the last night, and just follow my dad and the rest of us back to the hotel bungalow. She didn't have a go-along side to her. And I saw something that I hadn't really wanted to see before. Losing wasn't an end for her, it was a beginning. As for me, I was perfectly ready to say goodbye. Goodbye to the campaign, goodbye to politics. Soon, it would all be behind me. I told myself, my dad will never run for president again. I will never have to go through this again. Joining us now for the interview is the author of Dirty, Sexy Politics, her campaign memoir, Meghan McCain. Meghan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me again.
Goodbye to politics? Really?
That moment, when this is really a story, and the story of my 2 years on the campaign, and I was unbelievably sad, and I was very depressed afterward, and I thought everything I believed in and worked for 2 years really diminished and had this very, very sad, tragic, very Greek ending, and I actually say later on, like, I felt like I was at a funeral. And I didn't understand it at the time. You have to really go back to Obama mania and before Sarah was who she is now. And I was just confused. And I was very honest and candid in this book because I wanted to be, if go big or go home, like you might as well tell the truth. I mean, it was sad and it was very hard.
But at that same time, you're also sort of falling in love with politics. You're talking about seeing the people who are there to see your dad's concession. Look at how much people loved my dad and loved politics and loved this country. This counted for something. This counted for everything. There was so much love all around in spirit and faith. And I saw that I was lucky to be John McCain's daughter and to have been a part of this. So at the same moment you're saying goodbye to all this, forget politics, you're also sort of falling in love with politics.
Story of my life, yes. I mean, I didn't study this in college, and I did fall in love with the process. I mean, I don't think you can go, into the primaries in New Hampshire and Iowa and Ohio and not fall in love with people in the process of politics, which is why I'm still idealistic. But it was sad at the same time. It broke my heart. It broke my heart worse than any man ever has. So it was just hard, but beautiful at the same time. And later on, I got motivated. It took me like 2 months of like just staying in my pajamas and like eating a bunch of chocolate, and then
playing rock band.
Yes, playing nothing but rock band. And then I just decided I was going to be the leader I didn't have. Well, and I feel like I have ever since, sort of.
On that issue of being a political leader, I mean, the book sort of starts there and it goes back to it after you tell your personal story in between. And you're sort of making this plea in the book. It's the same one you've made over the past couple of years. The last time we talked a year and a half ago, and what you've done at the Daily Beast, which is really pleading for...
And for the record, my interview on your show about a year ago now was a turning point in a lot of ways, because a lot of people were shocked that I came on this show, and I still get feedback from it, even though it was a while ago, and they're like, I can't believe you would go on. And it's like, we can't just have Republicans going on Fox, Democrats going on MSNBC, and I still get comments about it, which is why I wanted to come back on again.
Thank you.
Yes,
thank you. I appreciate it. I know you have infinite choice as to where you're going to talk about the book, so thank you. But what we talked about a year and a half ago, and what you wrote about at the Daily Beast, and what you talk about in the book, is this sort of plea for it to be okay for Republicans not only to cross lines and come talk with liberals and stuff like this, but also for it to be okay for Republicans to be moderates.
Yes.
The party does not seem to be taking your advice on that this year.
Right now, I don't think it is. I have lots of friends that work, obviously, in politics, and they bet what's going to happen. Was this last election year the turning point? What will be the turning point? When will people see, on a very organic level, well, if you make the party smaller, you have less voters. So where do you go from there? And I know what it feels like to be alienated. I talk very candidly about how I felt alienated on the campaign, and I worry about the direction for lots of reasons. But I worry about the direction of politics in general. We're so polarized, and it's us versus them, and I think it's a very scary place. And that's why I continue to do what I do. And
you love the Republican Party, lifelong Republican.
I do. I believe in the core ideals. I think that, like so many things, politics is cyclical. You know, in the 90s, there was this resurgence of extreme conservatism. I hope that it will come back around. I really do. We'll see. It's really going to depend on who we nominate in 2012.
Do you feel like you have any allies who are making the same case that you are now about the need for it to be okay to be a moderate Republican?
I do. I think Senator Lieberman and Senator Lindsey Graham are great advocates as well. They take their heat, though. You know, people take their shots at them. I certainly live my life.
Senator Lieberman isn't a Republican.
He's an independent, technically, yes, but he endorsed my father in campaign, so I consider him sort of on my side. And, you know, it doesn't bother me, independent, like Republican, like, you know, if you want to be like a conservative-leaning liberal, and, you know, it's no secret how socially liberal I am, and I think the world is very gray, and putting it in black and white scares me.
Let me ask you about one issue about you, which you are very passionate, and that's gay rights.
Yes.
On the
issue, it's one of the reasons why I've been so polarizing.
Because conservatives who are not pro-gay rights are upset with you for being vocal about it.
Yes, and it seems to be just sort of I wrote a column a while ago, is it better to make a sex tape with a Carrie Prejean instance or before gay marriage? And it's an interesting choice because a lot of people supported Carrie Prejean even though she made, in my opinion, a very bad decision. And, you know, a lot of people chose her over me in that instance, so it's interesting.
Well, on the issue of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, you're obviously a big champion of your father's career. Your father has in the past year really emerged in a way that has surprised me even as probably the Republican Party's most vociferous proponent of keeping Don't Ask, Don't Tell in place. I know you disagree with him on that. Do you guys talk about it?
We do, to a degree. We've really had to come to sort of a come to Jesus moment that we agree to disagree. I mean, me and my mother have both posted for the No Hate campaign, which was really made much more waves than I even expected. And I don't know why it's so shocking that you can believe in, you know, small government and conservative beliefs, but think that your gay friends have the right to get married. And for me, it's just a civil rights issue. I believe in freedom on a very basic level, and I think that you can't live in a country and claim it to be free if I have different rights than you do. And on a personal level, I write candidly in the book about my gay friends that were really there for me when a lot of people weren't. And I just want to go to their wedding someday, just like I want them to come to mine.
Is your dad worried that you're becoming outspoken on that in a way that calls into question his own beliefs and his own activism?
I think the media might like to paint it that way. I really think it's generational. I've been very disappointed with President Obama. He is 49, which is significantly younger than my father. I don't understand why the media doesn't put more pressure on him to do something as well.
On gay marriage?
And Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Yeah.
For me, Don't Ask, Don't Tell is also a national security issue. For me, you know, I have 2 brothers in the military, and it's just making them less safe when you throw out Arabic translators because they're gay. And I personally believe that when you're in a foxhole, it doesn't matter who you go home to at night.
I would love to hear you talk to your dad about it, because I think that it's possible that right now, I think it's possible Don't Ask, Don't Tell would be gone right now if your dad was in favor of getting rid of it, because he's so influential on these issues. But I understand that's probably something that isn't fun over Thanksgiving. But
my life is complicated right now.
Yeah.
You know, it just is, because I have been so vocal, and it's something I really believe in, and it's difficult, you know. But he respects me, and we have an open dialogue, and I think just the fact that I'm here and wrote this book shows that he supports me.
Yeah. Let me ask you about, on that issue, the sort of big tent and civil rights. One of the things we were talking about in the show before starting this interview tonight was how positions that used to be like really out there sort of this year are not so out there. Rand Paul did an interview with me this year
yes,
in which
I know.
Yes, you might have heard about it.
The world knows, Rachel. Yes, I got a little bit of publicity. I think everyone in the world saw that interview with Rand Paul.
And the reason that it got so much attention is because he said essentially that the 1964 Civil Rights Act was a bad idea. That businesses should be allowed to discriminate if they want, to put us back in Jim Crow era. And you write about Barry Goldwater as a hero of yours in this book, obviously from your home state of Arizona.
Yes.
Barry Goldwater had the same position on the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and it's probably why the only states he won outside of Arizona in 1964 were in the super deep South. Does that history trouble you about the conservative movement?
Yeah, of course. I mean, and I think the Rand Paul interview, for me, was an example of why libertarianism is logical in a classroom and not necessarily applicable in real life. And Barry Goldwater, for me, I knew him as a child personally, and I'm from Arizona. I just moved back, and I drive down Goldwater Boulevard all the time. So, but obviously with instances like that, I obviously disagree with him. Yeah. And, later on in his career, he was for Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and he was actually, quite liberated in a lot of ways. And when I was growing up, that was what I read. So obviously I disagree with him, and he has his moments that I don't agree with, like every other politician. So
what happens next for you? You obviously have very strong feelings about the Republican Party and where it's going. As we've talked about, you're you do not have a lot of friends in the party on that in terms of your beliefs about which direction the party should go. So do you want to step aside from Republican politics? Do you want to stay in the fight? What do you want to do?
I want to stay in the fight, but I would really love to somehow organize, there's CPAC every year. I would love to do just a more moderate Republican meeting of some kind, because, it's kind of like the island of misfit toys. I go places and people are scared to talk to me about it. And I think it's because if you're out in this way, you just get eviscerated by blogs and reporters and things like that. And I would really love to somehow create a website or something that would organize it better, because I'm so not alone. I wouldn't be sitting here right now if I wasn't alone.